The Property Tax Division will now come to order. Welcome, everyone. Hope you had a good weekend. We do have a quorum, so can I have a motion on the minutes of March 20th, 2019? Thank you, Representative Carlson. Moves approval of the minutes of March 20th. Any corrections or additions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. The minutes are adopted. Thank you very much, members. And first up is House File 2646, Representative Xiong.
Madam Chair, is that different than what's in the agenda? Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. Members, Representative Petersburg, I think in a previous life was an editor because he's really good at catching the details, but it is House File 2646, even though the agenda has a little different number.
All right, thank you.
Welcome to the committee, and please explain the bill before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
And move the bill, too.
I'd like to move the bill for inclusion in the division report.
Thank you. And then please describe the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House File 2646 creates a simplified and more equitable homestead process for homeowners and disabled veterans, allowing all homeowners who own, occupy, and apply for homestead benefits within the assessment year to qualify for the property tax benefits they are eligible for. And the Property Tax Division is familiar with this legislation. I think last Wednesday, the committee heard Representative Sandsted's bill, 1259, which would move the deadline from July to December 15, enabling veterans additional time to qualify for the exclusion. This change was included in the 2018 Omnibus Tax Bill. And this bill simply goes one step further, moving the homestead deadline and the disabled veteran deadline to the end of the year on December 31st. Modern technology allows counties to process these homesteads faster, allowing for a streamlined process and more common sense deadline at the end of the year. And if members could look at the bill, there's also the disabled veteran homestead exclusion portion in this bill. In Minnesota, disabled veterans are eligible for a property tax benefit that reduces the value of their home up to $300,000 for assessing properties. The benefit applies to certain disabled veterans, surviving spouses of disabled veterans, and military personnel who died in the line of duty, and certain primary caregivers of disabled veterans. To apply, the eligible disabled veteran must own and occupy a property that is classified as a homestead. And currently, because of the December 1st deadline, if a disabled veteran purchases their home in the month of December, they are not eligible to receive homestead status on their home until the following year. And so delaying their ability to qualify for the property tax benefit. But the exclusion will stay with the property and the new owner, likely not a disabled veteran, and so which receives their benefit for the following year. And for example, if a veteran purchased their home on December 1st, 2018, they would not have homestead status on their home until taxes payable in 2020. And this new bill would allow the person to get homestead status for taxes payable in 2019 instead. And so I have with me here a testifier that can talk a bit about the homestead deadline and elaborate a little bit more on this bill.
Thank you so much, and please introduce yourself and give your title for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Leah Hart, and I manage the property tax benefit programs for Hennepin County. I'm here today on behalf of Hennepin County in support of HF 2646, which modifies the homestead qualification dates for the purposes of when taxpayers must own and occupy, as well as when they must apply. We have also distributed a letter from the Hennepin County Assessor, Jim Atchison, who unfortunately was not able to be here in person today. We simply want to state for the record that Hennepin County supports this bill. The taxpayers are veterans and their caregivers. We don't see a valid reason in Hennepin County why we should deny a year worth of homestead to a taxpayer simply because they own and occupy their home in mid to late December.
And are there any member questions? Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the author, you made reference to when a veteran would purchase a home and gave a hypothetical purchase date after July 1st. But with regard to the homestead classification of the property, that's always known in the property disclosure statement when you enter into a purchase agreement. So being that everything is payable a year later, if a property was homesteaded on January 2nd of 2018, given the example that you gave, it would still be homestead pay 19. How does this really solve a problem that maybe doesn't really exist?
Well, Representative
Representative
Hertaus, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Hertaus, I think it sort of depends on how the properties are assessed and sort of the details of the date, and I think the Hennepin County can elaborate a little bit more
Ms.
on
Hart.
Madam Chair, Representative, it actually does create an issue because the homestead status on January 2nd is for a non-disabled veteran. So they will get the tax benefit. So the disabled veteran purchases the home and qualifies after July 1st or December 1st, depending. And they will still receive the homestead classification and the tax benefit associated with it that the property received on January 2nd, but they will not get the disabled veteran market value exclusion until the following year. And that's the one that really provides them the biggest benefit.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you for that clarification, because that was the core of my question, because as presented, he was suggesting that the property loses its homestead
No.
classification. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Representative Hewitt.
Madam Chair, and to the testifier, so how does this work if you have a buyer going into a home that's non-homestead but yet a veteran? Where does that fall in then?
So
Ms. Hart.
Madam Chair, Representative, so you're saying if a veteran is purchasing a home that is non-homestead
Yes.
on January 2nd? Well, that's why this is so important, because currently, the way it works is if you own and occupy by December 1st, that whole year becomes homesteaded. So as long as they own and occupy by December 31st, with our proposed change, the whole year becomes qualifying for homestead and therefore their market value exclusion.
So Madam Chair,
Representative Hewitt.
testifier, so in this case, that would null and void the purchase agreement portion of this that says it's non-homestead then, is that correct, or?
Ms. Hart.
Madam Chair, Representative, I'm not exactly sure what happens with the purchase agreements on those properties, but we, all the way through the year, that would be a similar problem. Let's say somebody purchases a home in August that was non-homestead on January 2nd. I'm not exactly sure how the purchase agreements work, but it would present the same problem, I would assume.
Representative Hewitt.
I actually am yielding. I see a other side of the table there, it's calling for help.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, there again, regardless of the veteran exclusion in terms of disabled exclusion with regard to the non-homestead status, again, that's a disclosure that's part of the purchase agreement. So most often, price and terms are dictated by the terms of the purchase agreement. So if a buyer knows that it's non-homestead and feels they're entitled to it, they may negotiate a discount or a provision for the seller to pay the non-homestead portion of the tax as part of the purchase agreement. So I don't think it really affects that. But one other thing that came to my mind, Madam Chair, was the idea that these dates extend beyond the dates in which most local governments have to certify their levy. So this changes the arithmetic, if you will. Probably not a big deal with regard to the number of veterans that may be in a small community, but a larger community or a Class 1 city that has a lot of veterans or potentially a lot of transactions would be disruptive to the budgetary process.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions. Representative Xiong, any concluding remarks? Or is there anyone from the audience first who would like to testify for or with concerns on this bill? Seeing none, any concluding remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members. I hope you could get your support for House File 2646, which is to create a simplified and more equitable homestead process for homeowners and disabled veterans. And so I look for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Xiong. And with that, the motion to lay it over is renewed, and House File 2646 is laid over for possible inclusion in the division report. Representative Marquart is, as is typical at this point in the session, caught up on other obligations, so we're going to skip that and go to House File 1468. Representative Davids. And can I have a motion to bring House File 1468 before the committee? Representative Petersburg moves House File 1468 be considered for possible inclusion in the division report. Welcome to the committee. Representative Davids, please tell us about your proposal.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. What this bill does is it increases the bonding authority for the state fair, for the State Agriculture Society, I should say, which does oversee the state fair, from $20 million to $30 million. It also repeals the expiration date of July 1st, 2025. It repeals that, and there should be no cost to the state as it will be paid from ticket sales, licensing, exhibit space, rental facilities, and the Greg Davids family.
Representative Davids, do you want to explain that last comment?
We are frequent attendees of the state fair, and we always leave more than I figured we'd leave there.
Many of us have that as a tradition. And I don't see any testifiers, is that correct? Any questions from committee members? Anyone in the public who would like to testify for or with concerns? We have one, come on up.
Hi, my name is Mark Hughes, Chairwoman, committee members.
Welcome.
Thank you. I want to testify in favor of House File 1468 today because long before I started here, I actually worked at the State Fair. My hair was a lot browner. But it says in the revenue analysis detail, it is assumed that the proceeds from the $20 or $30 million bond, whatever's taken out, would be paid for by the ticket sales generated from the state fair, the licensing, and the space rental. And in any business model, that seems to me that it's really operating expense. So at this time, I don't really see any risk involved, unless there's something I'm missing here from 0 to 9. They're all numbers after that, they're infinitive. And Jerry Hammer, I happen to know, has very strong managerial abilities. And so I don't really see any risk, and I think we should vote in favor of House File 1468 if we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else would like to testify on House File 1468? Seeing Representative Runback and Representative Herr have questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a question of the author, perhaps, or your if you have any testifier here. But so we know that the some buildings at the State Fair collapsed under the weight of the snow. And is this? I see you've increased the amount of bondability, but will this be sufficient for your needs, given some new circumstances?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please introduce yourself for the record.
My name's Jerry Hammer. I'm the general manager of the State Fair. Thanks, Mark, for the shout out. And Representative, thanks for your question. Last week, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, excessive snow, rain, all that combined to take a portion of the cattle barn roof out. But we've been there before. We had a major storm 12 days before the fair started in 2007 and got everything back up, and you really didn't notice a whole lot even by fair time. So insurance has taken care of the cattle barn roof. And this bonding authority has allowed us to do some significant capital work over the year in repairing the fairgrounds. They're historic. They're a big part of everybody's lives, really. Some buildings are over 100 years old, and others are brand new. What this has allowed us to do, though, this bonding authority and the State Ag Society, the governing body of the fair, is responsible. The state doesn't back the bonds. They have no part in retiring debt. What it's allowed us to do is restore the grandstand, put roofs on major buildings, build a new bazaar, build a West End market, the transit hub, where about half the people that go to the fair are riding buses from parking lots, and then now we're building a new exhibit building on the north end of the fairgrounds that'll highlight all that's great about Minnesota with traveling exhibits. So we've used the authority 4 times since we first received it in '03. And the 20 million over time, inflation is eaten into that. When you factor inflation in, it's worth 14.36 million right now. This is just to get things caught up and get us back in good shape, where we'll be able to continue making major capital improvements to the fairgrounds. We're also on a very aggressive debt retirement plan. Right now, today, we do have 20 million in debt. We're carrying it right now because of the new construction project, but that'll be gone within 7 years. So we've been using the authority to do some pretty good work for the fairgrounds, some really good work for the fairgrounds. And Representative Davids is carrying this forward on our behalf so he can continue to do so, just get caught up a little with what inflation has done to our bonding ability. It's a lot more than you asked. I apologize.
No, that's
but
wonderful.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Representative
the answer.
Ronstadt.
Thank you very much, sir.
And Representative Hurt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick question, because I am new, I'm a freshman, and I've been hearing a lot in the debates on the floor and in committees about the importance of having sunset and why we put those in place. And I guess just want to understand why there was a sunset put in to begin with. What was it that we were trying to measure and look at the success? What was the success we were looking to measure with that? And in expanding this, then, is it, and maybe I'm just missing this here, but is it like, is there another date for a sunset later on, or is this to indefinitely allow bonds to be issued, or so just, and this is just to help me understand more of what's the process here.
Mr. Hammer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, the sunset was put in initially because it was new territory. In 2003, we had never done anything quite like this, and the idea of a quasi state agency having revenue bonding authority. It's out there, but we really didn't know much about how it would go or how it would be used. And that was the intent, to come back, check back in 5 years and see how we're doing. Since then, that sunset has gone from 5 years to 10 years, which it is now, with 16 years of experience and 4 major projects and more on the horizon. I think it's been pretty well established that we're able to manage the debt and use it for good things. So we're a lot more experienced now than we were then when the initial sunset was put in. But initially, it was to just check back in, see how we're doing, and we're doing pretty good.
Representative Hurt.
So then is this now, will there no longer be a sunset to this? If we're saying indefinitely now that the state fair can then issue bonds or have?
Mr. Hammer.
Madam Chair.
Or
And to the
Representative David.
question, it does get rid of the sunset, so it would go into perpetuity. It would last forever until we would change it again.
The legislative definition of in perpetuity. Representative Hurt.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? And with that, any concluding remarks, Representative David?
Well, I'm excited about this bill, and as long as I've got the gentleman here, I've got a couple of requests. If you could get for the grandstand back Old Dominion and Keith Urban. Old Dominion with the hit songs such as She Kept the Hotel Key and Beer Can in a Truck Bed. And I have found a great new place to park, and I will remain silent on that issue.
Thank you. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Davids, you do want us to support this bill, correct?
Madam Chair,
Representative David.
yes, I do. It's right by the birthing barns across the street, that huge lot over there. I didn't know that was back there.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no other concerns, House File 2650 is laid over for possible inclusion. 1468, sorry, I'm moving ahead. in my stack here, 1468 is laid over for possible inclusion in the division report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
And that, with that, we'll welcome Representative Murphy, House File 2387. Great. And can I have a motion to move House File 2387 before the committee?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Vang. And welcome to the committee. Representative Murphy, please tell us.
Madam Chair,
Representative Hertaus.
excuse me. So the motion is to move the bill before the committee, but where is it going next?
It's for possible inclusion in the division report.
Okay. Madam Chair, this is clearly a pension bill. This should be referred to GovOps.
Representative Hertaus, Pension Commission is hearing it. And this is an aid to local government, and so it falls within our purview. But the Pension Commission will also be considering it and making recommendations that we welcome hearing their insights from. And with that, I am going to let Representative Murphy give us even more background on House File 2387 and how it got here.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Representatives. In 1997, the legislature approved a significant public pension reform package that had to do with increasing contributions for employees and increasing contributions for employers, and it was a major thing that took a long time and much consultation of the various plans. And PERA was projected in that bill, PERA was projected to be fully funded by 2020. So in that legislation, there was a sunset of 2020. Now, early in 2019, before the Pension Commission had been, the new Pension Commission had been appointed even. In February, I had a request for an appointment from Gary Carlson and Keith Carlson, who are groupies of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement, and very helpful people. Now, somehow, that sunset that was placed in the legislation in 1997 escaped my mind. And last year, when we did the comprehensive pension bill for the future, it escaped my mind also, and also PERA's minds. And Gary and Keith Carlson's minds. But in the interim, Gary and Keith Carlson, who are really watchdogs of everything we do and should do, found that that 2020 sunset was still there, and we didn't remove it and change it to 2048. When Gary and Keith Carlson told me about this at our meeting in February, I said, oh my gosh, how much is that going to cost? And does MMB know about it yet? And I was told that they thought it would cost about $14 million per year for PERA and the state of Minnesota. And I left that meeting and I called Commissioner and told him, asked him if he was aware of this and that it was indeed an error that we had not caught before February. And as a result, 2387 was born. And that's asking us to change the sunset from 2020 to 2048. And with me today is Susan Lincheski, who is the director of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement. And she can give you more factual statements, I'm sure, not as quite as earnest as my request, but she's got details that and she can answer questions that I might not be able to.
Great. Well, welcome to the committee. Ms. Lincheski, would you like to add any comments before we open it up to questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the only other comment I would add is that the intent of the kind of two-part new effective date, or when the aid would terminate, there's two parts to that. One could mean that it would actually end earlier than June 30th of 2048, and that would be if para achieves full funding, which would mean that their assets equal their liabilities, which was actually the original intent of the 1997 legislation, with that is that it would expire at that date.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Any questions from members? Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Ms. Lincheski. So $13 million a year on till 2048 is what we're plugging the PERA accounts for our municipalities, is that correct? And is that the right number, or is this just temporarily, preventing further fallout, I guess, is my question?
Ms. Lincheski.
Madam Chair, Representative, the numbers that I have are MMB estimates, and I'm showing FY 2020 is 13.86 million, 2021 is 13.21 million, 2022 13.15, and 2023 13.1 million. And Madam Chair?
Representative Runbeck.
And I see that, Ms. Lincheski. And are those likely to be the numbers each year until 2048? Or what else might change, in the ensuing 20 years?
Ms. Lincheski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, my understanding is this amount adjusts, and it's been adjusting downward based on payroll and number of employers that are participating in para, so it's been going down every year. The premise on which it is based is all having to do with the 1997 law and the reforms made at that time, and the need for this additional funding to go to the counties and the cities. I think the counties and cities would always love more help as far as their employer contributions to para, but as it relates to this particular topic and what happened in 1997, those would be the correct numbers now and would likely then just decline over the next several years until 2048.
Representative Runbeck.
Madam Chair, and so I wondered if you could just explain then, so it's just a piece of the unfunded liability due to something in 1997. Would you just mind covering that once again? What piece was that?
Ms. Lincheski.
Madam Chair, Representative, back in 1997, there were many reforms made to all the plans. TRA and MSRS were both fully funded at the time, and in fact were funded in excess of liabilities. So there was an arrangement, I guess, made that some of those additional funds that would have otherwise have gone to para or to MSRS and TRA would instead go to the counties to help them pay for increases in employer contributions that related to that bill in 1997. We continue to look at, the Pension Commission and the legislature continues to look at the needs of each of the plans. This was just part of that reform package then. And it, again, relates to an attempt to get para on a more sustainable path to full funding, and the increases in the employer contributions were part of that package. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we still having some more testifiers yet?
Yes,
on
we
spill?
do.
I'll wait till after that.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
Representative Hertaus, would you like to wait or ask
Yeah.
now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Murphy and Ms. Lashinsky, the language of the bill really doesn't terminate at 2048. It just goes on in perpetuity until the actuarial value is equal to or exceeds the liabilities. So I think I have some concerns with the particular language of this bill, because as we clearly have heard now that this is an ongoing appropriation for more than 20 years as estimated. And although this is a committee of local government aid, this money is going directly to the pension contributions. And in State Gov Finance, we had a presentation with regard to the condition of the different pension plans that are available to public employees in the state. And this was a plan that is underfunded, but based on market evaluations and whatnot, it was unclear or uncertain exactly when that number would be there. So, Madam Chair, I think the real question is, part of my earlier question, is if this is going to the Pension Commission, what happens then? Is it going to get referred to GovOps or State Gov Finance, because this is going to affect targets?
Representative Hertaus, first I would call your attention to the line 1.8, which is until the earlier of, and then it goes into clause 1 and 2. The Pension Commission is advisory to the legislature, and we will look forward to getting their recommendation. As I stated earlier, this is an aid to local governments, so it falls within this purview. And typically, it's the Pension Commission that looks at the policy issues related to pensions. Representative Hertaus.
Well, thank you. And then as a member of State Gov Finance, I guess, I would like to track exactly what happens with the Pension Commission tomorrow and what their recommendations are, because this is probably something that ultimately will need to come back depending on what their recommendations are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And that, I think we're going to go to testimony, and we have representatives of the cities and the counties. Why don't you come forward? And Representative Murphy, while they get settled, while you call them groupies of the Pension Commission, we would say they are valued resources to the Property Tax Division.
And valued resources to the LCPR.
Thank you. Who would like to begin their testimony? Please introduce yourself.
Madam Chair, members, I'm Keith Carlson, Executive Director of the Minnesota Intercounty Association, and Gary Carlson from the League of Minnesota Cities, and Matt Hilgard from Association of Minnesota Counties have joined me. I'm just going to go over some big picture issues, and they will have some additional comments. I first want to correct the perception here that this money goes directly to PERA. This money goes to the employers of PERA other than the school districts to assist them with the cost of the contribution increase that occurred in 1997. At that time, the contribution was raised by 0.7% of payroll to 5.18%. As Ms. Lencheski indicated, it was sunset at what at the time was the anticipated amortization date of the deficiency that existed at that time. Unfortunately, that hasn't come to fruition. As Representative Hertaus indicated, the plan is still not fully funded based on the most recent actuarial valuations. The plan is 78% funded, and per the 2048 amortization date, it will be fully funded at this time. Since that time, PERA employers' contribution rate has increased substantially to the current 7.5%. I do not have the exact amount of the contribution in 1997. The furthest back I could find easily was 2004. At that time, it was $33 million annually. That has more than doubled. So in 2018, PERA employers are paying over $488 million in contributions to the plan. So our costs have increased substantially. This aid is not tied to those costs. It is simply tied to what our payroll was in 1997 or our current payroll, if that happens to be less, which has occurred for basically what I would call non-governmental employers who have been privatized since 1997 in most instances, and that's why the aid has been declining over time and will continue to decline over time. So bottom line is, we have substantial costs for PERA contributions. This provides a small amount of assistance towards our cost, and we would certainly be appreciative of removal of the sunset date, and thank Representative Murphy for putting forward this bill.
Great. And next.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Gary Carlson. I'm with the League of Minnesota Cities. I think I will just leave it that we do support extension of this aid. I think the facts of the aid program have been laid out by Representative Murphy, Ms. Lincheski, and Keith. So we do support extending this sunset.
Great. And Mr. Hilgert.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Matt Hilgart. I work for the Association of Minnesota Counties, and I would just echo what Mr. Carlson, Mr. Gary Carlson, Mr. Keith Carlson have said. AMC is in support of deleting this sunset and want to thank Representative Murphy for her efforts.
Great. And we also have another request to testify, Max Hall.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, for the record, my name is Max Hall, and I represent AFSCME Council 5. We're a public employee labor union that represents more than 43,000 local government, state government, and county employees. So House File 2387, as you've heard this morning, would provide approximately $13 million in direct state aid to the Public Employee Retirement Association General Plan. Over 153,000 employees are covered under the PERA General Plan, and it's the single longest operating public pension plan in the state. In 1997, as you've heard, the state of Minnesota provided direct state aid to help cover the costs of additional pension obligations by PERA to assist public employees to pay off the unfunded liabilities. This program was set to expire, as you've heard, on June 30th, 2020, which was then PERA's full funding date. However, PERA's, as a result of the amortization date changing because of last year's 2018 omnibus pension bill, that date was extended to 2048. However, because of an inadvertent error, as you've heard from Representative Murphy, this funding needs to be extended to the PERA General Plan. So this aid amounts to approximately $100 per public employer, a little bit less. And this direct state aid demonstrates that the state has acted in partnership with all of its local units of government to provide solid defined benefit pension plans for our state's public employees. We believe that this is a good aid program that should be extended to the full funding date of 2048 or the time at which PERA becomes fully funded, whichever occurs first, as you've heard in this discussion. The policy behind this is that the state's partnership with local units of government still have an obligation to provide full funding for these pension plans, and we stand in support of Representative Murphy's House File 2387. And thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you. And Representative Petersburg had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this question kind of refers back to Representative Hertaus's. And Madam Chair, with all due respect, I would not want to debate or argue with you, but I would like to at least offer an alternative perception on this particular bill. Just as one of the testifiers, Mr. Carlson, indicated, I don't really see this as a pension bill. Yeah, it says it's for the pension, but actually the aid is going directly to the counties, and it's for their use for that PERA. So really, it's the conduit there, and so we aren't directly putting dollars into PERA. And my concern is just that I would hate to have, it would be unfortunate to have this bill held up because of procedural issues. And so I might just, I just would kind of ask for your consideration to think about whether or not this actually does need to go somewhere, and we still have time to get it done, and maybe we should do that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I'll be glad to consult with others as we move along. And Representative Hertaus has another question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess kind of on the same lines what Representative Petersburg said, and the gentleman from AFSCME who characterized the bill as I described it, that it was aid directly to pension plans. He said the same thing. I did not mean that it wasn't a pass-through, that it goes to local governments and then goes to the pension plans. So just wanted to be clear about that. My own personal opinion is a contract, a promise made, it should be a promise kept, and I support doing whatever we have to do to shore up these pension plans. But whatever happens tomorrow with the Pension Commission, whatever that recommendation is, I would hope that it gets referred to GovOp or GovFinance, or at worst, or at minimum, that it come back to this committee so that we know exactly what their recommendations are, and that we can get our arms around this in terms of putting together the target and the budget. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Other, Representative Murphy.
Madam Chair, I would like to remind the committee members that want to see it again in another place, that what you said is absolutely true. The bill that comes out of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement goes to government operations when we have completed it. And that's one of the first stops, and state government finance also after that. One of the reasons that it is very important that this committee hears though is that although I have been advising various governors over the years that they should have a target in their budgets for pensions in every agency, and that always the cost of pensions for the public employees, for the agencies, should be a separate line item. And I've also said that to our speakers and our Ways and Means chairs in the last few years, at least for 10. And it's only happened a couple of times that there has been target. And I see on the today's sheet, I have not studied it carefully, but the word pensions didn't jump out at me as I was looking at the sheet. So we still have a message to deliver that if, and when I did call the commissioner, he said that to tell him about this error in not catching the sunset date earlier. The commissioner did say that they were well into the 2019 projected budget for 2020 already, and that there might not be so many funds available. And so in order to do this, it should probably be balanced in the state aids or in the tax committee. For the funding is $13 million.
Thank you. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to affirm you and what you had to say, Madam Chair. This is one of the items in our budget spreadsheet, I assume. I see Ms. Schill nodding her forehead, and that's what you, Madam Chair, said. So if it is the will of the legislature to continue this promise kept, members, this is the place, and it's our budget that this goes through and becomes part of the tax budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to testify for with concerns on House File 2387? Seeing no one and not any further questions, Representative Murphy, would you like to make some concluding remarks?
Please help.
Thank you. And with that, Representative Vang renews her motion that House File 2387 be laid over for possible inclusion in the division report. Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Representative Drazkowski has some guests here, so we want to hear from them as well. House File 2620. And Representative Drazkowski, while your witnesses are coming up, you would like you to move the bill for possible inclusion?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the committee entertain House File 2620 that be laid over for possible inclusion in the division report.
Thank you. It's before us. And with that, why don't you explain the basis for House File 2620?
I will explain it quickly, Madam Chair. Joining me is Representative Haley. This bill impacts both her district and mine and possibly others. And then we'll introduce the two gentlemen who have come from Wabasha. Members, there are parcels of farmland that are owned by nonprofit organizations, cemeteries, and hospitals in our state that traditionally have done things where they own the land, but farmers from around the area come in and voluntarily provide every unit of input from tilling to seed to pesticide to harvesting and delivery to market and marketing, et cetera. And then the proceeds from all of that are turned over directly to the nonprofit entity, whether that be the cemetery or the hospital or the church. And in that case, it's a nice fundraiser for those nonprofit organizations. Recently, at least the assessor in Wabasha County, in consultation with the Minnesota Department of Revenue, came to the conclusion that these small parcels of farmland actually should be on the property tax rolls where they hadn't been and they haven't been in the past, members, up until like today, this year or next. I'm not sure which, but maybe the gentleman can outline that. But with that, Madam Chair, unless Representative Haley would like to talk, I'll turn it over to Mr. Woodley and Mr. Abbott from the city of, or from the city of Wabasha.
Welcome to the committee, and please introduce yourself for the tape.
Madam Chair, Jim Abbott, representing both St. Elizabeth's Hospital and Riverview Cemetery. Just speaking in favor of this bill, we weren't notified of any, the entities have never paid any tax until we were notified this past July by our county assessor that there would be tax due on the land that is agricultural, and the program that benefits the hospital and the cemetery is a program that was actually started by my father more than 20 years ago. As Representative Drazkowski said, all the seed, fertilizer, labor has been donated, and those, when harvest comes, that product is sold, the beans or corn, and those monies then are placed into the hospital foundation to further our mission there. And until we were notified of this, we've never paid any sales tax on it, or property tax, I'm sorry. So.
Thank you. And Mr. Abbott is, pardon? Oh, excuse me, I'm just the order here. I'm just getting correct. Mr. Woodley.
Yes. My name
Would you
is
like
David.
to add to that?
Yes. Madam Chair, my name is David Woodley. I'm also a lifelong resident of Wabasha, and I'm very heavily involved in St. Elizabeth's and the Riverview Cemetery Association. Speaking on behalf of a cemetery, it was established in the association in 1866, and we actually have grave sites from 1840s. And we have a Civil War point with 13 veterans of the Civil War that I volunteered for the last 12 years since I retired, and that's kind of like my hobby. I'm very proud of that. And we have an extension for future grave sites, and it'll be probably 50 years from now until we actually get into that. And we take those acreages and give it to the Field of Dreams, which is just down the road from our cemetery. And all proceeds go to the foundation. And we're so proud that we can do that. And then we were also informed last July that because we tilled the soil and don't mow it, which would cost us an astronomical amount to mow every week, that we would be taxed on that. So we're here today just to ask that we be excluded from this tax. And I'd just like to mention too, I'm so proud of our two representatives. I'm also on the Port Authority of the City of Wabasha, and I fought very hard to keep our hospital in the last few years. And these two have just done a tremendous job. And since that day, our hospital is thriving. We own the clinic, the pharmacy, and all the proceeds from these fields go into our foundation. And we will never turn anybody away that needs insulin or anything else. We take care of it. So I thank you, Madam Chairman, for letting me come and speak today.
Thank you. And is there anyone else who would like to testify for or with concerns on this bill? Seeing none, are there any questions from members? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Drazkowski, a few years back, Representative Gruenhagen had a bill for some of our state prisons for the inmates to have a garden as well and produce some agriculture and sell. Would this be applicable to that situation? Do you know?
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative McDonald, I don't know. In this case, again, the Field of Dreams, by the way, is a small field of 20 acres that is owned by St. Elizabeth's Hospital at Wabasha, and they call the entire process by which everybody from, not everybody, but many farmers and others from the community come together to till the soil, plant the seed, do the pesticide applications, harvest it, get it into the bin and off to market. That's called their Field of Dreams. It provides then that money is all turned over to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. So I don't know exactly what happened with Representative Gruenhagen's situation, but this is the way it's been treated there for many, many years, and it has not received property tax up until, as Mr. Abbott said, the July of this last year, when the assessor, in consultation, I think with Department of Revenue, came to the conclusion that the law says that they should be actually on the property tax rolls.
Representative McDonald? Seeing no other questions, I think it's a charming story that reinforces the impression many of us have of small towns working together to solve community problems. Any concluding remarks, Representative Drazkowski?
None for me, Madam Chair. Maybe Representative Haley?
If I could briefly, Madam Chair, just thank our testifiers, and Representative Drazkowski and I have been very involved with the community and this hospital. To your point, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's a wonderful community where people do pitch together all the time, and this hospital is a testament to that. And so I urge your support of this legislation that will help them continue to help all the people that they help.
Madam Chair, I'd move that House File 2620 be laid over for possible inclusion in the division report.
Thank you, Representative Drazkowski, and House File 2620 is laid over for possible inclusion. And we welcome back Representative Marquart. House File 2650 is next on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Would you like to move your bill?
I will move House File 2650 for possible inclusion into the division report.
Thank you, and please tell us a bit about this bill.
Madam Chair, members, this is the annual public financing bonding bill, if you would. The kind of the gurus who deal with public finance and bonding, all those things, kind of look at all the laws and then come up with various suggestions for changes. This is typically to be a non-controversial bill, so I'm certainly all ears if there are things in here that may not be so non-controversial. So I'm hoping there are members from the public finance area that may come down and want to talk about this bill. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Marquart, and I believe that we have someone coming down to assist in explaining the bill and its components. Please come up and to the witness table and introduce yourself, and please explain the proposals coming from your group.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rhonda Scobie. I am a bond attorney with Dorsey and Whitney. I'm here in my volunteer capacity as the legislative chair of the Minnesota Institute of Public Finance. And I'm happy to run through the specific provisions.
Please do.
And I believe you'll recognize several of these provisions from the 2018 Omnibus Bill. Many of these are familiar. There are several new ones. Section 1 increases the maximum interest rate that counties can charge on drainage lien principals to the greater of either 6%, which is the existing cap, and, I'm sorry, to either 6% or the existing cap, and the existing cap is a rate set by the state court administrator for interest on court judgments based on a floating interest rate pegged to the rate on one-year treasuries. In 2018, that rate was 4%. Section 2 relates to notice provisions for school facilities maintenance bonds. Currently, Minnesota statutes 123B 595 subdivision 5, it requires school districts that are planning to issue general obligation facilities maintenance bonds to publish notice of the intended projects, the amount of the bond issue, and the total amount of district indebtedness at least 20 days before the earliest of 3 different time periods. And this is where the proposed change comes in. The three time periods are the earliest of the solicitation of bids, the issuance of bonds, or the final certification of levies. The statute is ambiguous about which solicitation of bids we're talking about here. It could refer to either the solicitation of construction bids or the solicitation of bids for the bonds. Bond counsel has traditionally taken the most conservative interpretation of this and interpreted it to refer to construction bids. The unintended consequence of that, we think, is that it undermines the way that many school districts undertake their construction projects. Many school districts solicit bids construction bids, I'm referring to here, prior to involving their bond counsel or their financial advisors in order to get an understanding of the size of their potential project. Then when bond counsel gets involved, the school district has to go back and give notice that's required by the bond statutes in order to comply with this notice requirement, which results in additional costs and project delays. And I'd like to note that this does not, the proposed change does not affect any other requirements for public bidding related to school construction projects. Those would remain unchanged in every way. But the proposal here would strike one of the 3 timeframes. So instead of requiring public notice potentially before the solicitation of construction bids, which is too early in the process to give a useful notice, instead the public notice would be provided 20 days before the issuance of bonds or the certification of levies. And at that time, the notice could more accurately provide notice of the size of the bonds, which is, we think, really the point of giving notice. Sections 3 and 4 relate to the transportation sales and use tax. As currently written, Minnesota statutes 297A 993 authorizes counties, and here's the crucial language, counties outside the metropolitan transportation area as defined under section 297A 992 to issue sales tax bonds for transportation projects. The reason I point that out as the crucial language is because the metropolitan transportation area, as defined in statute, is not what we would commonly think of as the metropolitan area. Instead, the cross-reference brings us to 297A and defines the metropolitan transportation area as any eligible county participating in the joint powers board authorized by that statute. And that joint powers board, when it was in effect, was commonly known as CTIB, the County's Transportation Improvement Board. And I think the members of this committee are very aware that that terminated in 2017. So as a result of the termination of CTIB, all counties are now outside the metropolitan transportation area. In other words, all counties are eligible to use 993 instead of 992 under the current reading of the statute. We would propose changing the language to make it more transparent and to more plainly say that. This proposal does not change the meaning of the statute as currently applied. Section 4 also relates to the 997A and 993, I'm sorry, 297A 993 sales tax. As currently written, 297A 993 does not expressly include specific authority to issue bonds, even though it speaks of using the proceeds of this sales tax over the course of years to finance the projects that are authorized by this section. The proposal today incorporates the language from the 993 statute into 992 to make it clear and apparent that the counties can use 993 to secure their bonds. Section 5 and 6 relate to public notice for conduit bonds. The IRS recently passed new regulations for tax-exempt bonds that reduce the public notice period from 14 days to 7 days. The proposal here suggests making the corresponding changes in Minnesota statutes. If this relates specifically to conduit bonds, this does not relate to bonds that are direct obligations of a governmental unit. Specifically, it relates to industrial development bonds under 469-154 subdivision 4 and housing bonds issued under 462C.04 subdivision 2. Section 7 relates to the bankruptcy code and cleans up some references, so it no longer refers to the code as amended through 1996. Section 8 relates to Met Council and clears up a cross-reference relating to grant anticipation notes. Section 9 relates to the definition of public facilities and expands the definition to include district heating or cooling facilities, which are presently included, and the expansion is to state whether publicly or privately owned. Section 10, and this is the last section, thank you for bearing with me, relates to the ability of cities and towns to issue capital improvement bonds. The proposed change deletes a cross-reference that limited the definition of town to towns of 1,000 people or more. Under present law, only towns with a population of 1,000 or more are authorized to issue capital improvement bonds. These bonds may be used for various public facilities, but may not be used for parks, roads, bridges, or transit facilities. This change would permit the town board for a town of any size to issue capital improvement bonds without referendum or meeting.
Madam Chair, I know there is someone here. I know there is someone here from the Met Council. If people had questions on. Oh, he is not here. Okay. Sorry, Madam Chair.
And Representative Petersburg has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have questions on two sections. First, on the first section, we're setting a higher minimum than what we had before. According to Mr. Clayman's notes summary here, the current rate, as it is defined, is 4%. This sets that minimum at 6%. Why do we need the higher percentage rate, if anybody knows the answer, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you. If you've got an answer to that, we'd appreciate it. Ms., I'm sorry, not finding the name.
Scobie, thank you.
Scobie.
Madam Chair, Representative, the theory here is that in a rising interest rate environment, it is possible, or the thing to be avoided is to have bonds that have a higher interest rate than what can be assessed to the benefited properties. So it just gives a little room for those drainage liens to keep up with the potential interest rate increase on the bonds.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll leave it at that, but it just seems like whatever base you put it at, it's always possible for that to happen above those rates as well. But the next, I won't belabor that one. The next is in Section 3, and it has to do with transportation and what the counties can spend. My concern is just that two in this area. One is existing law, and that's a question that I didn't really think about before. It doesn't really give the county the option of doing a sales tax or a excise tax. It looks like you have to do both. And that's a little bit of a concern that I'm surprised we want to talk about. But the other is, since 2017, I believe the metro counties have already been charging the additional sales tax. Will this give them an opportunity to double that amount or not? I was a little unclear about that.
Ms. Scobie.
Thank you. This does not change the authority to impose a new sales tax. As you point out correctly, the counties are already eligible to use this and have been using it since 2017. This change just makes the language more transparent.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Thank you. Representative Herr has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your presentation, so if maybe you already covered this, just let me know. So I'm a little bit concerned in language for talking about the public facilities project, so it's line 5.10 to 5.13. From what I understand, and maybe my bond knowledge is a little bit limited, because when I worked in the investments industry, I was mostly in securities and not in fixed income instruments, and so I'm a little bit concerned about then opening this up to any privately owned company to be able to use public facilities bonds, right? And so I'm curious if this opens it up for everybody to be able to do this, because from what I understand, isn't the bond market, right? Like, does it, like, bonds are resold, the bond ratings are based on the bonds, the amount of bonds that are issued and what the bonds are issued for. And so I guess I'm just a little bit curious, and maybe I'm thinking of something totally different, but if you could help maybe address that, because I am concerned about opening this up and now changing it from owned by a nonprofit organization to allowing any privately owned entity to be able to have access to the public facilities bond as well.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Joe Bagnoli, and I apologize that I wasn't here. Mr. Chair, I was up looking to see if he was going to be able to attend. I'm Joe Bagnoli with McGranshay Carnival Law Firm. I represent the Minnesota Institute of Public Finance, and I'll just answer. This provision was in last year's bill. It's brought to us by St. Paul District Heating. It was heard as a standalone bill, I believe, last week. I'm looking at Chair, it's the identical language to that. It permits, and I don't know if you were able to be there for that, it permits that nonprofit to also use their for-profit arm to do it. And I wasn't here for the testimony. Unfortunately, we included it as part of our public finance bill because it was in the bill that passed both bodies last year, and the governor vetoed for, I think, other reasons, not because of that provision.
Representative Herr.
Just a quick follow. So I did talk to House Research, and I also talked to the city treasurer in St. Paul, just to kind of get their take on the language on this. And this is problematic because it opens up, right, it changes the function of the market itself around bonds, right? And so I guess I'm just really concerned about this language. If it's being an exception for one entity, I understand something like that being done, but not to change the entire market to allow any privately owned company to have access to me says we're sort of literally changing the landscape, right, of the bond market, right? And so I guess I just want to make sure that we're not doing something that there might be an unintended consequence later, and when any privately owned entity comes and wants to do this and we don't have parameters in place, or what does this mean if, we can only issue a certain number of bonds in order to maintain our ratings, and now opening this, we're issuing them more bonds to maybe private institutions versus a public institution or a nonprofit organization. I guess I don't know the answers. I'm asking a lot of questions because this concerns me, because there is a whole regulating body around some of this work.
Ms. Scovey?
Thank you. I'm happy to speak to that. Currently, federal tax law identifies multiple categories of bonds that can be issued on a tax-exempt basis. One of those categories is called exempt facility bonds. That covers a host of categories that the federal government wants to incentivize growth in. Airports, low-income housing, and district heating and cooling and energy facilities of that sort fit under this umbrella of federally authorized categories as well. State law, to this point, has narrowly defined what Minnesota would authorize for these district heating and cooling facilities, and it has been expressly limited to nonprofit facilities. I am aware of only 3. I believe there are 3 district heating and cooling entities in the entire state. So this is already a pretty narrow category. Expanding it to include both public and private facilities aligns with what is already federally authorized. So to your point about changing the market for bonds, I don't think this expands the reach of what is already contemplated.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more follow-up. So what was the purpose of then having the original language of it? It has to be a nonprofit organization. Why was that language put in place? Because I'm concerned about removing something that we literally wrote into statute for a reason, and what would be the purpose of removing that at this point?
I'm not aware of the legislative history. I'm sorry. I don't know if there's anyone that can speak to that.
Anyone wants to address that question?
Madam Chair, Joe Bagnoli, I can only, this is just a guess, I have no idea, but that because there really only is one. There are a couple of municipally owned district heating systems of which I'm aware, district energy systems. I believe Chisholm and Hibbing and Wilmer may have them. The only one that is a nonprofit in the state, as far as I'm aware, is St. Paul District Heating. And my guess was at the time that the statute was put in, they were a nonprofit. I happen to know that their for-profit side is only in the last, I'm going to say 15 years. And this district heating was started in the 70s under Mayor Latimer.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think maybe we can just talk about offline maybe a little bit more about this, because I have talked to a number of entities and people who work directly with bonds who are concerned about this language as well. And I don't want to hold up committee time around this, so maybe we can just chat offline around the language. That would be really great. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding Section 4, my question has to do with the regional railroad authorities and new authority there. My understanding is that the property tax they're allowed to levy is to be used for operating expenses for in the metro counties for transit. And so I guess to me, this looks like now we're saying that they could use their powers to do capital. And I don't know if there's a cap on the regional rail authorities, taxation authority.
Ms. Scovey.
I don't have the regional rail authority statutes in front of me, but and there may be someone who's more knowledgeable about this, but my understanding is that the existing regional rail authority statutes do permit capital expenditures up to a certain cap, and I believe that cap is 10% of the cost of a given project. But this particular statute speaks to the authority of counties specifically, and I don't believe it changes the authority for regional rail authorities.
Representative
Okay,
Runbeck,
well,
House Research will look into that
Okay,
issue
great.
for us.
Okay, good, yep.
Madam Chair, Representative Runbeck, I would just tell you the intent, and we understand the sense, we are very aware of the sensitivities around that, is to change nothing substantively. We've talked to council about this to try to ensure that what we've drafted does that, does nothing. And it's just to make it more clear. We have a reference to a defunct CTIB, which is a statutory definition that refers to something that hasn't existed for 2 years, and so we're trying to make it clear.
Madam Chair,
Runbeck.
just, I think the question is, what would be the cap? Because there should be one, certainly.
We'll have staff look into that issue in terms of what's in current statute. Seeing no one else with a question, I have one. And I guess we have a public testifier, but let me just ask, since we're on questions, let me just ask this. And then I see throughout the bill, for focusing on various levels of government, we're shortening the notice period to the public. And, you know, I understand notice has requirements and costs and those sorts of things. But I also know that it's the industrial developments and the housing developments and school facilities that quite honestly generate the most consternation and community engagement on whether they think it's good or bad or want to provide input into their elected decision makers. So I have some concerns about, even though the federal government has reduced it from 14 or 15 days to 7 days, to me that's inadequate notice for a concerned public to find out. So I'm wondering if you have found, just because the feds changed it, I don't know that we need to, but I'm willing to listen to a rationale for why additional notice is an issue.
One of the
Ms.
reasons,
Bovee.
thank you. One of the reasons is a real pragmatic, logistical reason. A lot of smaller communities have newspapers that publish once a week, once every 2 weeks. So the timing involved to get into a paper that publishes twice a week, it requires quite a lot of lead time. So it makes it more efficient and clear if we can match up with the federal process.
Madam Chair, Joe Bagnoli, the only additional advice I would suggest on this is these aren't for schools or public facilities. These are for conduit bonds. And for the members of the committee, when we talk about what a conduit bond is, nonprofits like Regions Hospital, when they issue debt, and all nonprofits, the YMCA, Regions Hospital, and I don't know who knows about what conduit bond is or not. They can issue the debt through the city. The city will issue the debt for them, and it goes to them. So it's a private entity. It's a nonprofit private entity that's issuing debt. It's not building a school, a road, a bridge. The issuing debt. So it's just a little different than perhaps the public notice that might go into issuing the debt. It's sort of a financial transaction where you use the debt issuing ability to get the lower interest rate for a hospital. It doesn't generally impact the community in the same way as something where the taxpayers are on the hook. In these situations, the taxpayers aren't on the hook. So.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Maybe
response,
rationale
but
that's
I can say,
unpersuasive, but-
as someone who's served long on health and human services, not all of our human service facilities and housing are equally welcome into communities or neighborhoods, even though I wish more of them were. And so engaging the community in that discussion, I think, is useful as we move forward. And we have a public testifier and anyone else who would like to testify for or with concerns on this proposal. Welcome back to the committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Mark Hughes again. I'll be brief. There are a couple things in this testimony that I have a concern over. CTIB, what are we trying to bring that back for when we took it out in 2017 and everything seems to be running A-OK? My biggest concern, though, is you talk about the Met Council, who has January 1, 2019, at a $1.2 billion budget this fiscal year to spend and have fun with. January 4th, those of us who ride Metro Mobility for better or for worse, it runs worse than your first car sometimes, went through the biggest computer disaster you've ever heard of, where the phones didn't work, the switch went out at minute, the computers didn't work either, the computers didn't communicate, so we heard all those excuses. But there were those of us who were stranded 4 to 6 hours. And I don't think that the Met Council needs any more money. We just got to get some managers that can manage the whole system. The private contractors have to manage. This whole program's got to be better done. And the CTIB was taken out in 2017, so somebody please explain why. Thank you. Or why it has to be brought back in. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it isn't bringing it back. I think it's updating the statutes to show that it does no longer exist. And sorry if that wasn't clear in the testimony. Anyone else who'd like to testify on this? And seeing no further questions, any wrap-up comments, Representative Marquart?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks for the testifiers for the help on the bill. But this bill is not to create heartburn, so Madam Chair, you'll have to take a look at it as it moves forward. So I would renew my motion to lay over House File 2650 for possible inclusion into the division report.
And with that, House File 2650 is laid over for possible inclusion. Representative Poppe is here, and we're going to try and squeeze her in before we recess for an evening gathering on the other bills. And can I have a motion on House File 398 to bring it before the committee for possible inclusion?
So movement.
Thank you. Representative Bernardi moves that House File 398 be considered for possible inclusion in the division report. Welcome to the committee, Representative Poppe, and please describe your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, and there is an author's amendment.
I believe there's an amendment. Representative Bernardi moves the, is it an A1? I'm just getting it out right now. A1 amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, excuse me, maybe not all have the copy of the amendment? So we're going to, we'll reconsider that when everyone gets a copy of the amendment. Sorry about that, folks. And so, but let's continue on. Is the amendment generally technical so that you can describe the bill as it would be amended?
Thank you. Madam Chair, the amendment will just remove Section 3 of the bill.
Okay, that's easy enough to understand. In fact, thank you. So Section 3 will be deleted, and then you can describe when we get the amendment, and then please describe the bill before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is a bill that is supported by the Minnesota State Bar Association and the Farmers Union. It does provide that when married farm couples hold their property in trust, they will receive the same property tax classification that they would if they owned the land directly. It will ensure that farm couples don't face substantial property tax increases and lose their eligibility for the qualified farm property estate tax exemption. And today I have with me Andrew Howard, who can go into more detail, describe the bill and its purpose. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Howard. Please introduce yourself for the record and give us a little more background.
Madam Chair and members, my name is Andrew Howard at Briggs & Morgan, and I'm here representing the Minnesota State Bar Association Probate and Trust section. When estate planning, and specifically when providing for a surviving spouse, one of the most commonly used techniques used by taxpayers who own stock portfolios and a retirement account, a small business, and various other assets is the creation of a trust for that spouse's benefit. and potentially for the family members of that deceased individual. For family farmers, however, using this very common estate planning technique is relatively less attractive because of the asset that they own is farmland rather than stock in 3M or a mutual fund. Present law would not allow property owned by a surviving spouse and the trust of a surviving spouse, or the trust for a surviving spouse's benefit, to be linked for agricultural homestead purposes. So the family farm that is being operated while both spouses are alive, when one of them passes away, and some of the parcels of that family farm are transferred over to a trust for the surviving spouse's benefit, all of a sudden we cannot link those for ag homestead purposes. And they face much higher property taxes as a result. So family farmers are faced with either foregoing homestead classification on many parcels of the family farm in favor of sound estate planning, or they forego sound estate planning in favor of obtaining homestead classification on all the parcels which they farm. This bill would remedy the issue by allowing homestead classification when property is owned by any combination of trusts, when the deceased spouse or the surviving spouse is the creator of that trust. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. And are there questions from members? I don't see any. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to testify for or with concerns on House File 398? Seeing none, with that, any concluding remarks, Representative Poppe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just this would be very important for many farm families in greater Minnesota, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for the concise and explanation. I think we can handle an oral amendment from Representative Bernardi to delete Section 3, since we don't have that as a paper amendment before us, and it's pretty simple if people would agree.
Okay, Madam 3, I move to delete Section 3 as an oral amendment.
Great. And any questions? Not. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The bill is amended, and once again, Representative Bernardi renews her motion that House File 398 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in the division report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Members, it has been suggested, since caucus time is a little later, that we might be able to just whip through the last two bills and not have to come back this evening. If members are okay, I think we'll do that. And I will let Representative Vang take over while I present House File 2612.
When do we go back? When is caucus? Half hour.
All right. We have House File 2612. Chair Loeffler, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move House File 2612 for possible, for consideration and possible inclusion in the division report. And I would also like to move the A1 technical amendment.
Yes. The bill is before us and the amendment is moved. Does everyone have the amendment? Any discussions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Chair Loeffler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I present this, I want to say that this is a unique bill before our committee because it is authored by the leads on this committee from all three of the caucuses as the House is currently organized this year. And I appreciate the support of Representative Hertaus, Representative Drazkowski, and Representative Marquart. And the committee has been very patient and very attentive as we heard lots and lots and lots of local option sales tax bills this year. And one of the things that we learned in listening to those is that while originally they were authorized generally to meet regional needs, and so that the local sales tax was contributed to by regional residents and businesses, it would also, the capital improvement funded by it would benefit them. We now have seen a variety of proposals that have a broader purpose, sometimes a more local purpose, and that sometimes the specificity of the resolution and the referendum that was put before the people has really varied from city to city. And so this bill tries to do a couple different things. One is it says that the specific purpose and costs and projects that are to be funded by the sales tax have to be clearly delineated by the council in a resolution and in the motion that is put before the voters. So it's very clear to everyone how much money is going to be raised, what will it be used for, how long will the tax be imposed, and that it would change the process to come to the legislature first rather than going to the people first, so that we would look to make sure that it was all lined up with our intents and purposes, and then go to a referendum after the legislature had authorized it. And that it would also, in coming to the legislature, outline the regional benefit as that jurisdiction proposes it. And it seems to me that we have a lot of tools in our toolkit to help the fixed income person, whether it's a senior citizen or a low-income single parent with children, when their costs get high in property taxes. We have the property tax refund program, and we have their ability to deduct it against federal income taxes. On a sales tax, we really don't have any tools to help someone who's living on a fixed income with the increased cost of living that this can provide. So I think in general, it's good to have local projects funded with the local property tax. The other thing that's clear too is that I think that the purpose of this has gotten muddied over the years, and I think it's up to us to kind of bring it back with a little bit of guidance so that in the future, cities know what they can and can't do with this, how to proceed, and that the voters, when it's presented to them, know it's going to go into effect and what the dollar amounts are going to go for. And so I want to thank the House research staff and Ms. Dalton for helping work the language out on what a resolution should have so that it's really clear to the city council members and the mayor as well as the voters what that might be involved with. And with that, I will just answer any questions.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rep. Loeffler. In yours and my discussion in your office about this, I think it's a good reform to implement. The one mechanical aspect of the bill, what I was wondering about is, so they come into the legislature and get authorization first, and they have to list the projects, but then at the local level to get approved, they have to line item question each project. And so with regards to the authority and the dollars that are maybe requested or the amounts given approved, could you maybe just address that issue of, say, 3 of 5 pass, but they got the green light for all of the projects at the legislature? Just maybe you could talk about the mechanics of what your intention was there, how that's going to work.
Thanks, Madam Chair and Representative Hertaus. The intent here is that obviously the final say is the referendum of the people. So if they approve 3 of the 5 projects, those are the ones that are authorized, and I think the language is clear that that's the final decision. The legislative approval is up to that full amount, but it's ultimately up to the voters to decide.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Loeffler, do you have a particular cost of what cities usually spend, and maybe even other members on the council? I don't recall one from Delano, but in other districts, what the cost is in an average referendum in the city that takes place for such items that are pertained in your bill, ice arenas and other public projects improvement.
Chair Loeffler.
Madam Chair and Representative McDonald, I don't know. I'm sure it varies by community whether or not they have a local paper that they can use to get the word out versus if they have to use other resources and different ways to get the information to the public. I'm not sure.
Representative McDonald.
Yeah, I think maybe even Representative Hertaus might think. If I recall, anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 to do the surveys and a referendum for cities. So I see your bill as possibly being a way to save the cities, the taxpayer dollars, money, should their bill not be approved by the legislature, and have it be approved first and then the referendum take place afterwards. But in your bill, would that is stringent, it's tied on the fact that if it is approved here, they still have to have a referendum. Is that correct?
Madam Chair.
Chair Loeffler.
And Representative McDonald, that's correct. They still would go to the voters, but it would be after we had approved the form and content of their proposal.
Any other questions? Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Loeffler, I'll just give you kudos on lines 3.23 through 3.29, where it allows the voters to actually say, I want this project, and this project, but not this one. So I really like that language. Thank you.
Are there any testifiers from the audience that would like to testify on behalf of this bill? Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Gary Carlson. I'm with the League of Minnesota Cities. Let me first say that we don't have an official position on this bill. I would like to work with Representative Loeffler more on the language. Just a couple of points. Number one, and maybe Ms. Dalton can clarify, but I don't think we've ever had the phrase regional benefit or regionally significant in the 297A99 statute. I know that's been a term of art generally used with local sales taxes, but I don't think we've ever actually had the reference to regional in 297A99.
Ms. Dalton?
Madam Chair, Mr. Carlson is correct. It's never shown up in the statute, although it has always been used in the discussions.
And then, Madam Chair, if I could just go on a couple of other quick points. The 5-project limit, and I know Representative Drazkowski just referenced this, about voting on each one of those separately. You know, you might have a project where, say, it's a civic center and maybe an associated parking ramp, and the question becomes, what is a project? Is the project both the civic center and the parking ramp? Would those be separate projects? And what happens if the parking ramp isn't approved and the civic center is approved? So I would like to work with Representative Loeffler on something around the project limit test so that we're clear that projects that have intertwined uses can still be approved by the voters in one vote. And then I guess the only other comment I would have is that on the reverse process, reversing the way cities come to the legislature, there were 22 cities that last November had ballot questions on local sales taxes. 16 of those were approved ultimately, so 6 of those were not approved. I think that it's really kind of neutral as to whether coming here first or going to the voters first would work better. I guess one part of me would say that back in 2015 and 2016, we went 2 years without a tax bill, and we had several projects that got delayed for a long time because of the lack of a tax bill. So I guess what I'm saying is if they come here first, that actually may be advantageous because they would know if they have the approval of the legislature in the event you don't pass a tax bill. So, but I'll keep visiting with Representative Loeffler on some other observations on this. But again, we don't have an official position for or against this. I just wanted to share those observations on the record.
Representative Hertaus?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to applaud you, Mr. Carlson, on your recommendation that the tax bill is the most important bill and should be the first order of business every legislative session. Thank you.
Representative Drazkowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just remind Mr. Carlson, too, that if one item passes on the ballot, Mr. Carlson, and the parking ramp doesn't, they aren't committed as a city to spending on item A. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Duly noted, Representative Drazkowski.
Any other questions for the testifier or the bill author? All right, any final remarks, Chair Loeffler?
Nope, thank you very much, and thank you for the input of the committee and the witnesses.
Okay, and with that, Chair Loeffler renews her motion that House File 2612 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in the division report.
Representative Hertaus, how would you like to move your bill first to get it before the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move House File 121 to be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we can be out of here by 2:30. This bill was introduced in part of the omnibus tax bill that was vetoed. It was known as House File 4134. Its idea came from originally Representative Clark Johnson had folks that had a kind of a condemnation, if you will, of putting in a retention pond, and it causes the property to be under the permissible amount of area to be classified and to remain classified as agricultural purposes. What this bill does is there are a number of smaller parcels scattered throughout the state that, with regards to the legislative actions that were occurring, where now buffer strips were mandated, where we have the desire to preserve buffer strips in the form of wooded areas or woodland areas to really give benefit as an agricultural purpose, to not encourage people to cut down forest or cut down some of the beautiful open spaces that exist in the metropolitan regional area, and to allow those acres up to a maximum of 10% or 3 acres. So that tells you that we're talking about 30-acre parcels or less would remain or have the ability to remain as agricultural purpose. So with that, that's really what the bill does, and it just kind of protects landowners that had agricultural purposes that are maybe imposing environmental benefits for the benefit of clean water and the environment to remain agricultural without having to change the character of the property.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify for or with concerns on House File 121? Seeing none, any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing the bill again, and I renew my motion to lay House File 121 over for possible inclusion.
Thank you. House File 121 is laid over. And members, let me tell you, and audience, let me tell you kind of our plan going ahead for the week. And that is, and thank you very much for us not having to come back tonight by staying a little later today. We are planning to post our division report on Wednesday before the end of the day, and it will be posted on our website. And we can also send it out to the email list of anyone who's subscribed to the Property Tax Division email list. So as soon as House Research and the Revisor's Office get their magic done, we will share that with the world. And then our plan is at 8:30 on Friday, we will have a walkthrough with our nonpartisan staff of the division report and take public testimony. And our expectation is to be done about mid-morning, 10 o'clock. And so that we'll have had a chance to hear back from the public. And then on Monday, starting at 9 a.m., we would have our markup or amendment session to entertain amendments to the draft division report. And I worked hard to not have us have a Saturday markup. I hope this will all work for people, even though it's infringing into some time that sometimes is travel time for people in greater Minnesota. We did work hard to try and avoid the weekend.
Madam Chair, did you say 9 a.m. Monday?
9 a.m. on Monday.
8:30 on Friday.
And 8:30 on Friday, and we'll send out that notice with the room numbers as well. Oh, they'll both be here. We have room 5 dedicated to our use. Thank you, Ms. Jessen, for doing a good job and getting us a room that's comfortable and that will accommodate the public and the interested parties, because it's always an interesting day. And so if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, but otherwise, the division is adjourned.